Mixing with Mike, Ultimate Plugin Guide. The must-have plugin from FabFilter is the Pro Q2. There are probably about 3 or 4 must-have plugins from the FabFilter collection, but I think this is the one that I've gravitated toward the most, and so I'm going to kind of bring this up and talk about the Pro Q2 is probably singularly the most powerful, flexible equalization, digital equalization processor that I think I've ever used. And so if that's an overstatement, then I stand by it 100%. I think when you really look at the broad range and flexibility of the way that this plugin works, it's hard to deny the it as really at the top of its class in terms of digital EQs. The frequency analysis, the way that you can freeze the display, up to 24 bands that you can create. You just sort of create them as you go. All the different shortcuts and the way that you can kind of work with it, the flexibility and all the ways that you can use it. Let's kind of go through the user interface and talk a little bit about it. In terms of working with the EQ itself, what you'll have is you could just create a band just by clicking on a particular area. You could do booster attenuation, pretty simple. There's some great shortcuts here that are really cool. You'll see a little headphone icon. So as I do this, what can happen is I will hear just the frequencies within that band. So I can just focus really in on the frequency that I want to boost or attenuate. If I want to keep that frequency locked in, I hold the Option or Alt key, and it will keep that locked in frequency-wise, or it will keep it locked in gain-wise, depending upon whether I move up, down, or left, right first. You can also change the Q here by holding the Command key or Start key if you're on Windows, or Control key, excuse me, if you're on Windows. I'm sorry, no, that's the Start key. And then if you use the Command or Control key, then this allows you to disable the channel, change the shape, so you have all the different filter types, right? Low shelf, low cut, high shelf, high cut, notch filter, band pass filter, and a tilt shelf, which is kind of an interesting one. The tilt shelf, just very quickly, allows you to set a crossover point, and then you'll get an attenuation on one side and a boost on the other side, depending upon which way you drag. It's pretty simple. Mix that with the Q. You can resonate it, so you can get a really sharp resonance that can kind of give you a really unique character to a sound. Or you can do something that is much more like, if you really lay out the Q here, you can get something that's much more like a tilt shape across frequency spectrum. So that's just like an amazing one to kind of throw in there. There's also some unique things here. So if I go to like the bell curve, for example, I can also do some things here with the slope. So, and this is really unique because this gives me the ability to kind of do like these flat top style EQs that were kind of a big part of some of the Clark Technic graphic EQs. I'm sure there are other manufacturers that make that type of thing, but you'll see that. That's like a classic signature thing for one of their series of EQs, not commonly known. So you can actually change the slope, and this is in addition to changing the Q, which now changes the width here, but almost square waves it all. And so you can create some really cool effects there. If I option click on this, that's just a quick bypass. You also see the controls down here. So here I can also change between any of the 8-9 filter types, sweep the frequency, change the gain. If this is selected, then it will work where the Q will kind of narrow as you boost, somewhat similar to like a proportional Q, which you get with the API. So as you boost more, it'll narrow the Q more. Or attenuate more, and as you go less, it'll widen out a little bit. And then you also have, the Q control here. You can also split the left and right, so this way you can actually go ahead and change that. That's also available by control clicking on there. So you can paste this on the left, the right. You can put it back into stereo, split. You can delete the whole band. So you have a lot of options just kind of set up there. You can link the two sides, right, which will kind of put them back, together. So you get all kinds of interesting options here, right? And then you have you can go back and forth between the left and right, and this is on a band by band basis. Now, if you switch this to mid-side mode, then you'll have mid-side processing in a very similar way. So you can work mid-pan signals versus side signals, and that style of processing. So there's loads and loads and loads of stuff that you could do there. So getting back here, let me just kind of go back to default setting. That's where I want to be, default setting. Depending upon where I click, I can also create some different things. So if I click down in the display here, I can create a high-pass filter. If I click and drag from either end, then I can get a shelving EQ. And again, I can use my shortcuts to kind of work my way in. So you can see how quick and easy it is to kind of work with the different shapes. And then the right-clicking or control-clicking will give you all of the individual controls if you don't want to kind of work them from down here. So loads of stuff just on that end, so you can just kind of see that. As you're getting used to it, you might want to just show the interactive help tip. Sometimes this is annoying, but when you open that up, when you put your cursor over parameter, it will give you instructions about what that is. So if you're not, if you're adverse to reading through manuals, then that's a great way to go about it. So I mentioned the mid-side mode. Again, what you have here is the quality of the processing. So this will give you the most instances, but the lowest level of quality, which is still great on its own. Natural phase will give you a little bit more of an analog component kind of quality for the processing, and then you can go linear phase. And if you go that way, then you have everything from low level minimum linear phase, up to a maximum, which would be sort of mastering grade. So you can make it as pure and clean and transparent as you want it to be, or you can make it a little bit more musical with a natural phase, or you can just do it for generic sounds that you don't need to add as much character into. You could just go with the zero latency, and that'll work great. It's mini learning, so that you can assign knobs to specific parameters if you want to set that up. We went over the mid-side processing. There's loads of stuff that's kind of hidden in here. You could actually have a sidechain fed in. What that allows you to do is use a feature called EQ match. So if you feed in another channel, it's quite amazing because you can actually feed in that. It will compare the signal, do a frequency analysis of that, and then match and add bands into your EQ. So it'll measure what you already have, and then it will make adjustments to that and add in bands that would give you an EQ that would match the characteristics of another one. So if you have two guitars that sound slightly different, maybe with different mics, but you want them to sound as similar as possible, you feed one into the other, and then match up the frequencies and with the EQ match, and you're good to go. There's also a feature, a couple things here. There's a freeze. This has to do with the spectrum display, and this does as well, which I'll kind of show you here. So you can actually get the display on the frequency graph to kind of freeze. I'll show you that, and that helps you to select bands and specific frequencies. So I'll show you how that works. The display show pre and post or both. You got a range, the resolution, the speed of the display, the tilt, so none of these features, I most of the time never touch these features. They just are what they are. And then you have output gain control, right? Phase inversion, and auto gain here. So if you're doing boosting or cutting, what that allows you to do is it just allows you to have the EQ automatically set up the makeup gain at the output, or make down gain. So if you're doing a lot of heavy boosting, this will kind of balance the relative output. So you have a lot of levity there, and then this shows the output meter display on the side. So there's a lot there, and when you get into here, if you're doing a little bit more delicate processing, you can make the full display 3 dB, 6 dB, 12 dB, or 30 dB. So that gives you a lot of levity. So if you're doing something that's more mastering grade, you're probably going to have that on 3 dB, so you can really see the accuracy of it. And if you're doing a super aggressive processing, then it'll actually kind of switch automatically, right? So as I get, if I go up higher, that will switch to 30. Just so it can display the boost. So again, there's a lot of very intelligent things that are kind of programmed in that happen under the hood that are really powerful. You have A/B undo layers, lots of them, loads of presets if you're into that. I'm generally not an EQ preset type of person, but you could just keep going. And then here, just from the display purpose, you can display this as a full screen, which is crazy size. It kind of freaks me out a little bit. but for you it may work perfectly, especially if you have a smaller screen. I think because I have a pretty large screen display and it's fairly close to me. Otherwise, you can go with different size displays if you want to shrink it down all the way up to extra large here. So a lot of control over what you have going on. And if that isn't enough, you also have a keyboard display here. So if I want frequencies that are in particular locked to a specific note, sometimes that's cool if you have a particular note that you want to notch out, or you can hear, it's a specific tone that's a note that you want to notch out. You can go in and focus the notch out filter to bring down a note or raise a note that maybe sounds lower. Like sometimes you'll have a bass and a certain note just won't stand out as much. You can go in and boost that particular note frequency to help it stand out a little bit more. So loads of stuff, as you can see here. So let's have a little listen here. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to work in a basic linear phase medium. This is just on a basic mix. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mute out the vocals here for a second. And let's just... So if I move the cursor down here on the bottom, you'll see that the screen starts to freeze. So I see, it's showing me peak levels and kind of holding them in place. So if I see something in particular that I want to focus on, you'll see that a little EQ starts right in that area. So I can actually kind of take that out, and then, like maybe I wanted to notch something like that out, I would have the ability to kind of scoop in and find that pretty quickly. Right, so on that end, it works pretty amazingly well. So I'll go back to the frequencies here for a second. I'll just start just to show you. Start with if I change the slope here, I can also get it to be a little resonant. Tight low end, in a pretty heavy resonance, I can kind of do that. And it's easy to just kind of stack filter types here. So most of the time what I do is just work here, where I can just kind of bring something in here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just kind of tighten up the low end here, do a little bit of a low mid dip. Maybe I'll do just like an overall kind of shelf up here. If I want to do a very gentle slope, the 60 dB per octave won't give me the ability to resonate. And that's like a very musical way of warming up a sound, whereas if you go more aggressive with the slope, then what'll happen is it'll give you can get sharper resonance. So I can do like a basic tilt here. I want to spread that out. It goes up to 30K, by the way. Is intelligent in that if you set up certain settings, the next time you open up the instance, it will, it will continue using those setting changes that you've made. So if you have like a certain workflow or things that you regularly do, it will kind of follow that pattern and kind of keep you going with that, so, which is incredibly cool. So we have that, but let's take a look at what this would be like with a natural phase. Or zero latency. a buffer, so doing that in real time, that's actually quite fast, the way that that works. But you can see how there's like a qualitative difference in there, and just that flexibility on top of the 24 bands, on top of all the different display variations, the size of the display, how quickly you can work. Once you learn the shortcuts for this, you could just work so fast. It's so quick and easy to kind of go around. You could see just very quickly how easy it was to work through some different things. If you just want to do mid-side processing, you switch it to mid-side. And then, if you wanted to, say, split this filter off here, this low band, that you could take the side signal and, kind of bring that down, or even change, the characteristics of that, so it's a little bit less low end. So the low end kind of focuses more towards the middle, and have just like, you see how just quick and easy it is to make adaptations to what's going on. It's a very powerful plugin, a real favorite of mine, for all kinds of EQ work, and light enough on the CPU processing that you can, crank up a ton of instantiations. Most of the time for just general work, I use the actually go with the natural phase mode, and where I want a little bit more like real super purity, then I'll go to the linear phase. But you can still get a lot of instantiations, and it just holds up with just everything. Really, really powerful one, and it's absolutely a must-have plugin from the FabFilter collection. So it's Mixing with Mike, Ultimate Plugin Guide. Must-have plugin, FabFilter Pro Q2.